The church bells were still echoing when his words pierced me deeper than the coffin lowering into the ground. We had just buried my husband, James. The man I'd built a life with. The man whose laughter still clung to the corners of our home. My hands shook from grief as I stood beside his grave, clutching a single rose. That's when his father stepped forward, his face stern, his voice loud enough for every mourner to hear. "Maria," he said coldly, "the property reverts to blood family now. Pack your things. You have no claim here anymore." Gasps rippled through the crowd. My knees nearly gave out. At my husband's funeral, on the very day I needed comfort, they stripped me of everything. Or so they thought. Because what they didn't know was that James and I had a secret. I can still smell the lilies from that day. The way their sweetness mixed with damp earth as James's coffin was lowered into the ground. My fingers ached from clenching the single rose I held, its thorns digging into my palm, but I barely felt the pain. All I could think was that I had lost him. My partner. My anchor. My reason to get up every morning. The pastor's words blurred together. Friends and neighbors murmured condolences. Emily, my sister-in-law, squeezed my arm for a moment, her face unreadable. And then, like a knife cutting through the fog of grief, came his father's voice. "Maria," Harold said firmly, his eyes hard as stone. "The property reverts to blood family now. You'll need to leave by the end of the week." First I thought I misheard. My ears rang from the weight of loss. "What?" I whispered, my voice shaking. He repeated himself louder, almost proudly this time. "The house, the land, it belongs to James's family. Plus, you were only his wife, not blood." Gasps spread through the crowd. Heads turned. Even the pastor shifted uncomfortably. My heart stuttered. Not blood. Wasn't 20 years of marriage enough? Didn't sleepless nights nursing James through his illness count for something? Didn't love mean anything to them? Tears blurred my vision. "Harold. James wanted me to have the house. He told me." Harold cut me off with a sharp wave of his hand. "Men say a lot of things when they're dying. But what matters is family. You don't belong here anymore." I swayed where I stood, as if the ground beneath James's grave was pulling me down too. People whispered, some avoiding my eyes, others looking at me with pity. I wanted to scream, to shout that James and I built that home together. That every nail, every painted wall carried pieces of our lives. But my voice was trapped in my throat, choked by grief and humiliation. His mother, Lydia, finally stepped forward, her voice softer but just as cruel. "It will be easier this way, Maria. You're young. You'll find another place. Another life. Another life." I had just buried my husband. The only life I wanted was the one they were stripping away. I turned away from them, my tears falling onto the fresh soil of James's grave. My heart was broken, but beneath that heartbreak, a seed of anger began to stir. Because deep down I knew something they didn't. Something James had told me in his last days. And Harold was about to find out he wasn't the only one who knew how to protect family. That night, after the funeral, the house felt hollow. Too quiet. Every corner echoed with James's absence. The empty chair at the table, the coat still hanging by the door, the faint smell of his cologne clinging to the bedroom. I walked through the rooms in a haze, my hands brushing walls we had painted together, shelves lined with memories. Our wedding photo, the framed ultrasound of the baby we lost, a crooked little wooden birdhouse James had built one summer and insisted on keeping inside instead of outside. I stopped in front of his desk. The oak one he guarded like a dragon guards treasure. My hands trembled as I pulled the top drawer. Inside, among scattered pens and invoices, lay a thick, sealed envelope. My name written across it in his neat handwriting. Maria. For a moment my breath caught. I slid into his chair, the leather cool beneath me, and turned the envelope over in my hands. The weight of it felt heavy, purposeful. Tears blurred my eyes as I carefully tore it open. Inside was a letter. James's voice flowed across the page in his familiar script, and as I read, it felt like he was right there beside me. My love, if you are reading this, it means I am gone. I know you. I know how you will mourn me, but I need you to know something first. You are not alone. I made sure of it. My fingers shook as I pressed the paper closer. My family has always been possessive, especially my father. He sees the property as blood, not love. I knew, Maria, that the moment I was gone, they would try to strip you of everything. That is why I prepared. The deeds are in your name, not theirs. The lawyer will have the documents ready when the time comes. I gasped, covering my mouth. He had known. Do not let them bully you. Do not let them shame you. You are my wife, my partner, my only true family. This house is yours. And if they try to fight you, show them this letter. Show them you were never just my wife. You are my chosen blood. Tears spilled freely as I clutched the paper to my chest. My grief swelled, but so did something else. Strength. I wiped my eyes and looked deeper into the envelope. Along with the letter was a small brass key taped to the back of the page. Underneath, in bold letters, James had written, "Safety deposit box. Trust me." My heart pounded. James had hidden more. The next morning I walked into the local bank. My body trembled, but my grip on my purse was firm. The banker, an older man with kind eyes, nodded when I handed him the key. He led me to a private room and unlocked the box. Inside were 2 folders. One thick with papers, one slim with a single USB drive clipped to the front. I opened the first folder. The titles, the house, the land, every property James had owned, all signed over to me. My name printed clearly across every line. The banker looked at me over his glasses. "Mrs. White, it seems your husband wanted to make sure you were protected." Protected. The word cracked something inside me. I flipped open the second folder, curiosity burning now. Receipts, ledgers, and then a list of bank accounts. My hands trembled as I scanned the figures. Not just enough to live. Not just enough to survive. Enough to stand, to fight, to never bow to Harold or Lydia again. The USB drive glittered in the light, mysterious and small. I slipped it into my purse. I didn't know what it held, but I knew one thing. James hadn't just prepared. He had left me weapons. When I returned home, Harold was waiting in the driveway. His arms crossed, Lydia perched beside him like a silent shadow. "You've had enough time," Harold barked. "The end of the week. Do you understand?" I looked at him differently now. Yesterday his words crushed me. Today they barely touched me. I thought of James's letter. His steady hand, his quiet foresight. And I almost smiled. "Don't worry, Harold," I said softly. "You'll understand soon enough." His eyes narrowed, suspicion flickering. But inside me, for the first time since James's death, I felt not just grief but power. That night, I sat at the dining table, the USB drive resting in my palm like a loaded weapon. The house was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator, but my pulse was loud enough to drown everything else. I hesitated for a long moment before sliding it into my laptop. The screen flickered, then a single folder appeared. "For Maria." Click. Inside were dozens of files. PDFs, scanned documents, spreadsheets. My eyes widened as I opened the first. It wasn't about our property. It wasn't even about James's assets. It was about Harold. Bank statements, wire transfers, shell accounts. At first, the numbers blurred together. But the more I scrolled, the colder my blood ran. Harold had been moving large sums of money out of the company he ran with James. Quietly. Legally. And worse, he had been doing it for years. My hand flew to my mouth. This wasn't just mismanagement. It was embezzlement. Fraud. I clicked another file. This one was an email chain. Harold to Lydia, Lydia to Harold. Words that stung like poison. "If James asks questions, remind him the property belongs to the family. He won't fight us, he's too weak now. Once he's gone, Maria will have nothing. We'll push her out quickly. The land must stay in blood hands." Tears filled my eyes, not from sadness this time but rage. They had planned this. While James was fading, while I was nursing him, while we sat by his bedside praying for just one more day, they were scheming. I opened one last file, a video. My breath caught as James's face filled the screen. He was thinner, paler, sitting at his desk, the camera slightly shaky as if he'd set it up himself. His voice was hoarse but steady. "Maria," he said, his eyes locking with the lens with me. "If you're watching this, it means they're trying to take everything. I knew they would. My father has been stealing for years. Kept the evidence. All of it. You can stop them. You must stop them. Because if you don't, they'll bury you the way they tried to bury me." I pressed my hand to the screen, sobbing. "Oh, James." The video ended. I sat back, shaking, my heart pounding with something new. This wasn't just about property. This was about justice. James had left me the keys to expose Harold, to tear down the lies he had built. But the timing mattered. If Harold knew I had this, he'd strike first. I closed the laptop and wiped my tears. Tomorrow I would go to James's lawyer. Tomorrow I would put this into hands that could protect me. But fate didn't give me that chance. The next morning, as I walked out to my car, Harold was already in the driveway. Lydia stood behind him, arms crossed, her face smug. "We need to talk," Harold barked. I clutched my purse, my heart racing. "I don't have time." He stepped closer, his shadow falling over me. "Make time. I know James left you something." "Where is it?" My throat went dry. "I don't know what you're talking about." His eyes narrowed. "Don't lie to me. You were in his office. You found the envelope. He always was too soft with you. But let me be clear. Whatever you think you have, it won't stand in court. Blood wins. Always." Behind him, Lydia smirked. "You'd do well to remember that, Maria. Don't make this harder on yourself." For a moment, fear paralyzed me. My pulse thundered, my palms slick with sweat. But then James's voice echoed in my head. "You must stop them." I straightened my shoulders. "You're right, Harold. Blood does win. But you'd be surprised who counts as blood these days." His face darkened, confusion flickering in his eyes. I brushed past him, unlocking my car with steady hands, though my heart was racing. Inside my purse, the USB pressed against my fingers like a secret waiting to explode. That night, as I prepared the evidence for the lawyer, one thought blazed in my mind. They thought grief would make me weak. But grief had sharpened me into steel. The next morning, I barely touched my coffee. My hands trembled as I clutched the USB drive, tucked deep in my purse. Every step toward James's lawyer's office felt heavy, but determination carried me forward. Mr. Blake had been James's attorney for years. A quiet man with silver hair and sharp eyes. He had handled everything from property purchases to hospital paperwork during the last few months. When I stepped into his office, he rose and clasped my hands gently. "Maria," he said softly, "I am so sorry for your loss." "Thank you," I whispered. "But I didn't come here for condolences. I came for protection." I placed the USB on his desk. His brows furrowed, but he nodded and slid it into his computer. For the next hour, silence filled the office as file after file opened before us. Bank statements, transfers, emails. His expression grew darker with each click. Finally, he leaned back in his chair, exhaling slowly. "Maria, this isn't just misconduct. This is serious crime. Your father-in-law has been laundering money through shell accounts and hiding it as company expenses. We're talking millions. If this reaches the authorities, he could face prison time." I gripped the edge of my chair, my pulse racing. "He tried to take my home. He told me I had no place in this family. And all this time he's been stealing." Mr. Blake nodded gravely. "Yes, and from what I can see, James knew. He gathered this evidence deliberately. But he must have been too sick to act." My chest tightened. I could almost hear James's voice. "You must stop them." I looked at the lawyer, my voice steady. "Then we stop him now." Mr. Blake tapped his fingers on the desk, thinking. We'll need to be strategic. If we go directly to the police, Harold will claim you fabricated this. He'll spin the story against you. But if we file for probate on James's estate with these documents included, everything becomes part of the official record. Once that happens, investigators will have to act. The word probate hit me like a hammer. James's estate. It was official. My husband was gone, and now his legacy was tied up in legal battles. But I knew this wasn't just about property anymore. It was about justice. I'll do it, I said firmly. Mr. Blake gave me a small nod. Good. I'll prepare the paperwork. In the meantime, keep this close. Do not let Harold suspect how much you know. As I left the office, sunlight spilled across the street, warm against my face. For the first time since James's funeral, I felt lighter. Not because the pain was gone, it never would be, but because I wasn't powerless anymore. When I got home, Harold's car was parked in the driveway. He stood there, arms crossed, waiting like a vulture. "Maria," he called, his voice sharp. "We need to talk." I forced a calm smile. "Of course, Harold. What about?" His eyes narrowed. "Don't play dumb. James must have left you something. Documents. Money. Tell me where it is." I tilted my head, my hand tightening around the strap of my purse. "And if he did?" Harold stepped closer, his breath hot with anger. "Then it belongs to me. To the family. Don't make this ugly." I swallowed down the fury rising in my throat and forced my voice to stay steady. "Ugly? Harold, you made it ugly the moment you tried to throw me out at his funeral." For a flicker of a second, I saw surprise in his eyes. Then rage returned. "You'll regret this." Maybe once those words would have broken me. But not anymore. "Maybe," I said softly. "Or maybe you will." That night, as I tucked James's letter back into the drawer, I whispered into the quiet house. "I'm doing it, James. I'm fighting back." The walls seemed to hold me, the house itself standing with me against those who wanted to take it. I didn't know how ugly the battle would get. But I knew one thing. Harold wasn't the only one who could roar. The courthouse smelled of polished wood and paper. My heels clicked against the floor as I walked in, clutching James's letter and the folder of evidence Mr. Blake had prepared. Every step was steady, but inside my heart pounded like a drum. Harold and Lydia were already there, seated confidently with their lawyer. Harold's suit was pressed sharp, his gold watch glinting in the light. Lydia wore pearls, her chin lifted, her lips curved in a smug smile. When their eyes met mine, Harold gave a little smirk as if to say, "This will be easy." I sat beside Mr. Blake, who leaned in and whispered, "Stay calm. Trust the process." The judge entered, and the hearing began. Harold's lawyer wasted no time. He stood, his voice booming. "Your Honor, we are here to assert the rightful claim of the White family to the property in question. The house, the land, by blood right, they revert to the patriarch, Mr. Harold White. My client's daughter-in-law, Maria, has no legal standing." Lydia's head tilted proudly. Harold smirked again, shooting me a sideways glance. Mr. Blake rose slowly, his voice calm but strong. "Your Honor, while opposing counsel speaks of blood rights, the law speaks differently. James White left legal instructions, and my client, his wife, holds both the deeds and the right to his estate. And we have documents to prove it." The judge motioned for him to proceed. Blake handed over the first set of papers. "Here are the property deeds, legally transferred to Maria White, signed by James White himself, months before his passing." The judge flipped through them, nodding. Harold shifted uncomfortably. His lawyer frowned, whispering quickly. But Blake wasn't finished. "And that is not all. We also submit into record financial documents and correspondence that reveal misconduct by Harold White, evidence gathered by James White himself." The room buzzed. Lydia stiffened, her pearls trembling at her throat. Harold's smirk collapsed. "What evidence?" the judge asked. Blake plugged the USB into the courtroom monitor. "Numbers, transfers, Hidden accounts appeared on the screen. Then the video file loaded. James's face filled the screen, thin, pale but resolute. His voice carried across the courtroom. My father has been stealing for years. I gathered the evidence. If you are seeing this, it means he is trying to strip Maria of what is rightfully hers. Do not let him. Gasps erupted. Lydia pressed a hand to her mouth. Harold's face turned crimson. That's a lie, Harold shouted, slamming his fist on the table. He was sick, delirious. You can't use that. The judge banged his gavel. Order. Sit down, Mr. White. But the damage was done. The investors listed in the documents, the transfers, the emails between Harold and Lydia. It was irrefutable. Blake's voice was steady as he delivered the final blow. Your Honor, this isn't just about property. This is about fraud. We request that the court uphold Maria White's legal ownership and refer the financial misconduct evidence to the authorities. The judge leaned back, silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. So ordered. The property remains with Maria White. As for the financial records, this court will forward them to the district attorney for investigation. The gavel came down with a sharp crack. It was over. Or rather, it had just begun. Harold roared, his face twisted with fury. You'll pay for this, Maria. You'll regret crossing me. I stood, my hands steady on the folder, my voice calm and clear. No, Harold. I regret nothing. This is what James wanted. And this is what justice looks like. For the first time since the funeral, I walked out not as a widow beaten down by grief, but as a woman carrying her husband's truth into the light. The moment I stepped out of the courthouse, the world changed. Cameras flashed. Reporters swarmed. Microphones were shoved toward me, voices firing questions like bullets. Mrs. White, do you have proof of the embezzlement? Did your late husband know about the fraud? Do you believe Harold White will face prison? For a moment I froze, my hand tightening around James's letter in my purse. I wasn't used to this kind of spotlight. I was a wife, a widow, not someone trained to face reporters. But then I remembered James's video. His quiet determination. You must stop them. I lifted my chin and spoke steadily. All I did was tell the truth. James collected the evidence. I am protecting his wishes. The law will decide the rest. The microphones lowered, murmurs rippled, and for the first time, I felt something I hadn't felt in weeks. Respect. By evening, Harold's name was splashed across every news outlet in town. Local businessman under investigation for fraud. Allegations surface after probate hearing. Neighbors who once looked at me with pity now knocked on my door, bringing food, flowers, or simply words of support. You were brave, Maria, Mrs. Lopez from down the street told me. Most people would have folded. James would be proud. Her words sank into my heart like balm. For so long I had felt alone in my grief, cornered by Harold's threats. But now people were standing with me. Even Emily, my sister-in-law who had seemed distant at the funeral, showed up one evening. Her face was pale, her hands twisting nervously. I didn't know, she whispered. I thought Dad was just trying to protect the family. But seeing those files, seeing James's video, I know now he was protecting you. I'm sorry. Tears welled in my eyes as I hugged her. Thank you, Emily. That means more than you know. And just like that, the lines Harold had drawn in blood began to blur. Not everyone in his family believed in his lies anymore. Meanwhile, Mr. Blake worked tirelessly. He filed additional paperwork, secured protective orders, and handed copies of the evidence to investigators. They can't touch you now, he assured me. The law is watching them, not you. One evening, as I reviewed the documents again, I realized something. I wasn't just surviving Harold's wrath anymore. I was dismantling it, brick by brick. The woman who had once been told to pack her things and leave had now become the woman the entire town saw as the rightful heir, not just to James's property, but to his truth. And I wasn't done yet. The night was still when the knock came. I almost ignored it, thinking it was another reporter too hungry for a quote. But when I opened the door, Lydia stood there, clutching her shawl tight around her shoulders. Her face was pale, eyes ringed with exhaustion. She looked smaller than I had ever seen her. "Maria," she whispered. "Please. I need to talk." I almost shut the door. After all the cruelty, after the funeral humiliation, why should I listen? But something in her trembling hands stopped me. I stepped aside. She entered slowly, her gaze flicking around the house as if she expected Harold to appear from the shadows. Finally, she sank into a chair at the kitchen table, her hands shaking. "I didn't know James left you proof," she began, her voice cracking. "I thought Harold would take the property, and that would be the end of it. But I didn't know. I didn't know about the money. The fraud." My jaw clenched. "You stood by him while he tried to throw me out of my home. You called it easier this way." Tears welled in her eyes. "Because I was afraid. Maria, Harold has controlled everything for decades. Every cent, every choice. Even me. You think I stood by him willingly? Well, I stayed because I was trapped." Her words rattled me. Lydia, the woman I'd seen as cold, complicit, was shaking like a frightened bird. She leaned closer, her whisper urgent. "He's been hiding more than fraud. There are accounts overseas. Names tied to them that would ruin people if they came out. He told me once. If anyone betrayed him, we'd all go down together. Maria, you have no idea how dangerous he is." I sat back, my chest tight. James's USB had revealed fraud, but Lydia's words hinted at something bigger, something that stretched beyond Harold alone. She gripped my hand suddenly. "Please. When they come for him tomorrow, I'll testify. I'll tell them everything I know. Just promise me one thing. Don't let him destroy our family completely." Her tears spilled over. For the first time, I saw her not as my enemy, but as another victim. "I promise," I whispered. The next morning, the world shifted again. Police cars pulled up to Harold's office. Flashing lights reflected in the glass as officers led him out in handcuffs. Cameras swarmed, reporters shouted, neighbors gathered. Harold's roar echoed down the street. "This is a setup. That woman, she framed me." But no one listened. Not anymore. The evidence was undeniable. The law had caught up with him at last. Lydia stood beside me at the courthouse later that week, her hands still trembling, but her voice steady as she gave her statement. She confirmed the fraud. She confirmed the schemes. She confirmed that James had been right all along. The judge's ruling was swift. Harold's properties, accounts, and holdings were frozen pending investigation. The house and land were confirmed as legally mine. The family's attempts to strip me of everything had collapsed into dust. When the gavel came down, I exhaled a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding for months. That night, I walked through the house in silence. Not the silence of grief, not anymore, but the silence of peace. Every corner still carried James's memory, but instead of pain, it gave me strength. I stood in our bedroom, holding his letter one last time. "Do not let them bully you. You are my chosen blood." I smiled through my tears. "I did it, James. Fought back. And I won." Outside, the garden was blooming, the air warm and soft. Neighbors waved when I stepped out the next morning, no longer with pity, but with respect. Emily visited often now, and even Lydia came quietly sometimes, carrying groceries or flowers, her eyes softer than before. Harold's roar was gone. What remained was my voice. Strong, steady, unshaken.